If you have been watching anime long enough, you've probably encountered with the following. You've been enjoying watching a series, talking about how good it is until you get to the 12th episode finale, leaving you wanting more, and then appears that one guy and goes, "Hey bro, just read the manga, it's far better." The debate whether the manga or the anime is better has been a topic of discussion within the community since the dawn of time. A conflict longer than pineapple on pizza or boneless versus bone-in chicken. But what makes a good adaptation? What makes a bad adaptation? Is the anime or the manga better? Many times I've had problems with anime adaptations for not following the source material. So here's the question: if we take a manga and make an anime adaptation of it that sticks to the source material and follows the plot and the characters faithfully, could that anime adaptation still be bad? Yes. It can actually be bad. And one great example of that is Berserk. I don't think this manga needs an introduction. This is one of the greatest manga ever made. A piece of work which panels are a work of art. Their anime adaptations though, not so much. Berserk 2016 is perhaps the main reason why us anime fans try to avoid any anime with 3D animation like the plague. It's the prime example of anything that could go wrong in an adaptation. Berserk not only had one, not two, but three anime adaptations. Three attempts of trying to get it right, with all of them having its set of drawbacks that we see in other type of adaptations. The movies had updated animations with very nice sequences but sacrificed time developing its cast of characters. And I've seen many anime having the conundrum of, okay, we have limited runtime, so we cannot adapt 100% everything, so what do we do? Do we focus on those big climatic scenes or the quieter moments with more character development? Nah, get that shit out of here! Without realizing that the quieter scenes with the characters is what actually gives more weight to the big scenes and making it more memorable. The best anime adaptation Berserk has ever got was the first one, the one made in 1997. The opening slaps. The animation has that edginess that gets close enough to the original source material, but overall held back by a cliffhanger ending and many scenes with still images, which is much more like a school project PowerPoint presentation made by a 6th grader than it is to an anime. But it's still very good anime nonetheless, because well, it's freaking Berserk. But also, they gave us one of the best dub outtakes ever.
Push it! I'll be there till the end, even if I have to kill you! Kill you now! Do it! Run! Get to the chopper!
Let me ask you this question. If we copy-paste from a manga to an anime, in the sense that said show follows the manga to the T, and all it does is just adding music, color, and voice acting, is that enough to make it a good adaptation? In my opinion, the answer is no. If all you're doing is just adding mid-animation, voice acting, and generic music and not going the extra mile, then I'll just stick into reading the manga. At the end of the day, reading manga is like the speedrun version of watching anime, except that is uncensored and often better drawn. For me, an anime needs to do something beyond of what the source material originally did to make it worth watching. But unfortunately, anime adaptations, generally speaking, has the problem of being just a promotional material for the manga, like the usual 12-episode season with an open ending and never making a second season and never hearing it from it again. I'm looking at you, No Game No Life and White Album 2. I've been waiting since freaking middle school. I'm almost 26, goddammit! But before an anime adaptation can be any good, there are certain things that has to do in order to not be bad. And we can start with one certain element that was more prominent before than it is now, and it's this little thing called filler. Back in the day, long-running shonen anime had this thing of trying to stay on air as long as possible, but every popular franchise has encountered with the problem of catching up to the manga that it's based on. So what was the producer's solution to this? Well, loads of crap. Filler. Stupid non-canon stories unrelated to the source material that doesn't do anything to advance the plot or the development of the characters for the manga to be ahead again and getting more material to that. That's why anyone who would binge watch Naruto or Bleach would eventually skip those filler episodes. But what happens if those filler arcs get integrated into the episodes with actual plot like One Piece? I used to watch the One Piece anime and honestly, I did enjoy it but stopped doing so a few years ago because this series series is so long that I could read the New King James Version Bible from top to bottom and the anime would still going. At certain point in the anime, episodes became unbearable to watch. 5-minute recaps of the previous episode that you just saw a minute ago. Extended openings that only serves to waste more episode runtime. Scenes with characters nobody gives a shit with pauses and stare-offs just to fill time. All of this resulting on ruining the viewing experience for the sake of extending the material as long as possible. So you would get all this garbage and 5 to 10 minutes of the actual episode. Thank goodness modern anime doesn't do this anymore. For any manga reader, having an adaptation that is 100% faithful to the original material is the ultimate goal, and it's not really hard to understand why. Anime original endings, shows that rush through the original material or straight up skips moments that gives more depth to the overall story. Things that make anyone say, please just be as close to the manga as possible, but is it always being 100% faithful good? Bocce the Rock is a very good recent example of this. Originally a 4-panel manga where its anime series took what the manga did and expanded it with creative animation, good music, and hilarious scenes that only would work in animation, resulting on being one of the most beloved slice of life anime right now. I love Bocce the Rock so much that I even made a cover of the opening and posted it on social media. Also, follow me on Instagram and TikTok. Come on guys. While being faithful is a very secure way to make an adaptation succeed, it can also be a limiting factor for creativity, as you can take every panel, every scene, basically a copy-paste and put it on the screen without adding anything new. Because one thing we don't understand enough is what it really means to adapt something into anime. Adapting a manga to an anime is more than just adding movement, voice acting, and music. You must know what elements works for anime and the other way around. But the most important thing is to capture the essence of the source material while translating it into what works best for an audiovisual workpiece. We have seen many live-action series and movies that completely failed to capture what made the original source material great. Uncharted, Ghost in the Shell, Cowboy Bebop, the list goes on. One live-action that comes right away into my head that really captured the essence from its source material and expanded upon it was The Last of Us. Its original video game was already good, versatile, innovative gameplay, a compelling story with fleshed out and flawed characters, and how well executed these two things work together. The TV series hits the sweet spot by evoking everything fans about the game while still finding new and interesting things to do with the material. For instance, its first episode recreates the opening of the game but taking the opportunity to expand and develop the narrative by starting the story a few hours earlier just to explore the lives of Joel and his daughter on their daily lives before everything went down. And that's one example of the things the series got right. In anime adaptations, you can tell within the first few minutes if it was adapted from a light novel or a manga. In light novels, their characters tend to go through long-ass internal monologues, overly indulgent exposition, and long dialogue scenes where characters just talk with nothing visually interesting going on.
時間が経ちすぎていたし、犯罪性が薄かったこともあってあまり
その手の話はそんなに珍しくないだろう。
知ってるかい？
そりゃもちろん。日本で唯一。
やはり裁き力といった言葉の後に僕もそれが気になってね。
Not a lot of thought is put on the cinematography unless it's an action sequence or an important dramatic scene. But in manga adaptations, things are a bit different. We have less dialogue and there is more emphasis on visual narrative. Anime based on manga feels different from anime based on light novels because both are made using different elements that only would work within their own medium in mind. And having said this, shouldn't anime studios keep this in mind when adapting? Look at this shot from Attack on Titan and compare it to its original manga. You immediately feel, oh man, that's how you expand upon something from a different medium. Anime has many cinematographic resources that only works in anime, and one big thing that we can say manga has limitations is in the action. How many of us have read that one manga where there's this big fight going on, big punches, swords swinging around, shit is going down, bro, and you're like, What the hell is going on here? The small movements in fast action scenes can get lost in all of these panels trying to explain where the punches are going. So many times manga must make up for it by showing big clear defined actions so the reader can follow more easily what's going on. Well, that or having paragraphs of monologue explaining it. This action sequence from Casino Royale is one of my favorites. James Bond chasing this dude through a construction site, and this guy is always one step ahead. The guy goes around objects and obstacles easily fast, while James is having a hard time keeping up with him, improvising ways to get close to him through shortcuts and brute strength. And all of this conveyed in split seconds without any need of explanation, and you can see that only through their actions and visual storytelling. If this was a manga, this would probably go with big paragraphs of internal monologue explaining everything, since there is no way to set up the next moment through animated movement. These rules don't have to apply in anime, but most anime adaptations ignore this aspect. Many fights of a manga follow the same pacing as the manga fight, same frames, actions being explained when you can just simply show it through movement. There is this phrase that was ingrained into my memory during my time in film school. It is show, don't tell, and this doesn't only translate in terms of body language and action, but to the storytelling itself. Going back to Bocchi the Rock, one of my favorite funny scenes is when Bocchi, she's in her room printing some pictures while having an internal monologue about how much fun she's having and how much she wants to continue with the band. So far, very wholesome moment till she starts laughing like a maniac, revealing her entire room is full of pictures as if she were some serial killer. It might look very simple and obvious, but the way the shots were edited, where it starts as a close-up of the picture and then zooming out showing the entire room full of them and cutting immediately to credits, subverts the expectation of the viewer from its initial emotional tone to the comedic relief. In the manga, as I said before, is a 4-panel manga, so the delivery of the joke is not as good compared to the anime because it's limited by its own medium. This joke only worked in anime better because of its cinematic language, something that only anime can do. Berserk, Oyasumi Punpun, Vagabond, Uzumaki. These work pieces work so well because they are manga and uses all its strengths to tell its story in a way that only its medium can do. You turn a page of some of these panels and you can't help being mesmerized by its artwork. It feels like a painting. You can take your time looking at them and analyze all its details. And then you look at the anime adaptation and say, I mean, it's alright. There's an obvious difference in the medium, and the only way you can adapt these masterpieces is to use the strengths of its own medium while keeping the spirit of what made this story great, rather than trying to emulate the strengths of another, which rarely happens. There are a lot of things to consider, like having the right production, the right budget, the resources, the right time, and even if we get all of that, if the anime doesn't go an extra mile than its source material, a lot of us will probably go and read the manga anyways. But if the anime does it right, it can elevate the manga in more ways that could ever reach on its own. But when you get a truly good adaptation that you get to experience for the first time, it can be a one-in-a-lifetime experience. And after all that was said, yes, the manga is still better. Most of the time. Go and read the freaking manga.